In a small community in northern Italy, everything seemed peaceful until a shocking incident disrupted the town. A priest was secretly filmed in an ambiguous situation with a woman, sparking chaos and disgust among the inhabitants. Life, which until then had flowed gently between green hills and golden wheat fields, seemed to follow an immutable rhythm. The church, with its bell tower dominating the sky, was the beating heart of the town, not only as a place of faith but also as the center of social life. When news arrived that the new parish priest would be a young American cleric, the town was swept by a wave of murmurs and skepticism. Father Giovanni, as he was introduced, was 35 years old and had an accent many imagined to be a strange and unfamiliar mix. His academic training in Rome wasn't enough to reassure the more conservative parishioners, who found comfort in the traditions the old priest had upheld for over 4 decades. An American priest? What does he know about our customs? Complained Pietro, the village blacksmith, hammering harder than necessary on the anvil. Maybe he'll bring modern songs to church, joked Giuliano, the bartender, drawing a few laughs from his café patrons. Despite these initial reservations, the day of Father Giovanni's arrival was met with a mix of curiosity and nervousness. The tall, slender priest stepped off the bus with a warm smile and a small piece of luggage. The main square was crowded with people watching the scene intently. "Good morning, everyone," greeted the priest, his accent betraying his origins but laced with a disarming sincerity. "It's an honor to be here with you. I hope I'll be up to the task." For a moment, silence fell over the crowd, broken only by the soft tolling of the noon bells. Then Maria, the elderly woman who always had an opinion about everything, replied, "We'll see, Father. We'll see." Father Giovanni's first days were filled with meetings, smiles, and explanations. The priest made an effort to meet every member of the community, visiting homes, fields, and shops. To some, this enthusiasm seemed a bit forced, but others began to notice something different about him, a genuine desire to understand. One Saturday afternoon, during a visit to Pietro's workshop, Father Giovanni paused to watch the blacksmith at work. "You know, Pietro, the sound of the hammer on metal reminds me of something sacred," he said thoughtfully. "As if each strike not only shapes the steel but also forges our soul." Pietro, caught off guard by the reflection, stopped for a moment. "I never thought of it that way," he admitted, wiping the sweat from his brow. Over the weeks, Father Giovanni began doing what he did best, bringing people closer to faith through tangible actions. He organized a food drive for families in need and engaged the youth in activities that combined fun and spirituality. However, not everyone welcomed his methods right away. "Why do we have to change everything? Wasn't it fine the way it was before?" complained Agnes, an elderly parishioner, during a parish committee meeting. Father Giovanni, with patience, replied, "Traditions are important, Agnes, but sometimes we need to adapt them to reach more people, to bring the light of faith to those who feel excluded." This approach slowly began to bear fruit. Father Giovanni's homilies, woven with personal anecdotes and a touch of humor, started to resonate with the faithful. His words seemed tailor-made for the community, addressing daily concerns while lifting their spirits. One day, during a particularly crowded Mass, Father Giovanni shared a story from his past. "When I was a seminarian in Rome," he began, "I often felt like a fish out of water. But one day, my mentor told me, 'Don't try to be like others. Strive to be as God wants you to be.' Those words changed the way I lived my faith." After the Mass, Maria, who had initially been among the most skeptical, approached the priest. "Father, your homily made me think. Perhaps it's we who need to change, not you." The transformation of the community didn't happen without obstacles. Father Giovanni faced criticism, misunderstandings, and, at times, veiled hostility. But the priest didn't give up, trusting in the goodness of his mission and the power of prayer. A pivotal moment occurred during a dramatic event that forever changed how the community perceived Father Giovanni. One morning, after the 7 o'clock Mass, Laura, a widow respected for her dedication to the parish, suddenly fell ill in the church. Father Giovanni immediately rushed to her aid, doing everything he could to help. As he performed CPR and prayed fervently, a few women entered the church and, misinterpreting the scene, thought Father Giovanni was involved in something improper. Panic spread quickly, and the sacristan rang the church bells to draw attention. Within minutes, a crowd had gathered outside the church, fueled by rumors and unfounded accusations. The tension was palpable, and despite the priest's attempts to explain, no one seemed willing to believe him. The crowd outside the church grew larger by the minute. Drawn by the insistent ringing of the bells and alarmed whispers, townsfolk spilled into the main square. Some whispered amongst themselves, while others, bolder, shouted questions and accusations. The scene had taken on an almost surreal atmosphere, as if the entire community had been swept into a vortex of uncontrollable emotions. Inside the church, Father Giovanni continued to do everything he could to help Laura, who lay unconscious on the floor. Despite the tumult outside, the priest remained focused, alternating between CPR and prayers. "Lord, give me strength," he whispered, sweat streaming down his face. He fought desperately to keep panic at bay. Finally, one of the younger parishioners, Marco, pushed through the crowd and rushed into the church. "Father, what's happening?" he asked, panting. "Call an ambulance, now." Father Giovanni replied without taking his eyes off Laura. Marco nodded and ran out, fumbling with his phone to dial emergency services. But the tension outside was spiraling out of control. Some men had approached the church door, shouting, "What's he doing in there? Why won't he come out and explain himself?" Meanwhile, Laura's phone, which had fallen to the ground during her collapse, was still live streaming on social media. Many parishioners, unaware of the real situation, had received notifications about the broadcast. Some hurried to watch the video, and fortunately, the truth began to emerge. Among them was Julia, a young mother who always followed the parish's activities closely. Watching the video on her phone, she realized that Father Giovanni was fighting to save Laura's life, not engaging in anything inappropriate. Wasting no time, she made her way to the square, waving her phone in the air. "Stop! Everyone, stop!" she shouted, her voice a mix of fear and urgency. The villagers turned to her. "Look," she added, showing the video to those around her. "He's trying to save her life." Julia's words began to break through to the crowd. Some grabbed their phones to verify for themselves, while others exchanged embarrassed glances. A tense silence slowly replaced the murmur of accusations. At the same time, the ambulance arrived, and paramedics entered the church to tend to Laura. Father Giovanni, finally relieved of his medical duties, stepped out of the church, his face tired but calm. The crowd, which moments before had seemed ready to condemn him, stood in silence, unable to meet his gaze. It was Maria, the elderly parishioner, who took the first step. "Father, we're sorry," she stammered, lowering her eyes. The priest looked at her kindly. "There's nothing to forgive, Maria. I know fear can lead us to jump to conclusions. What matters is that we learn from this." One by one, the villagers approached to ask for his forgiveness, while some apologized to one another for fueling the panic. The square, which had been a scene of chaos moments earlier, transformed into a space for reflection and reconciliation. With Laura recovering in the hospital and the viral video clarifying the situation, the town began piecing itself back together. However, the wounds left by that day ran deep. Some parishioners, like Pietro, felt a strong sense of guilt for not giving Father Giovanni the benefit of the doubt. The priest, for his part, used the incident to build a new narrative. During his first homily after the event, he said, "There are moments in life when we face situations we don't fully understand. Fear can blind us, but faith calls us to see beyond, to trust one another." His word struck a chord. Many left the church with a renewed sense of unity and determination to do better. Meanwhile, Laura was slowly recovering, and from her hospital bed, she thanked God every day for sending Father Giovanni to her aid. But the ordeal wasn't over. The community faced another challenge, rebuilding trust, not only in Father Giovanni but also among themselves. The priest organized a series of meetings, inviting everyone to share their emotions and openly discuss what had happened. These gatherings became moments of growth, where people engaged in honest conversations, learning to understand each other on a deeper level. The weeks following the incident were a period of intense reflection for the community. The church, usually filled with smiles and cheerful greetings, now seemed permeated by an atmosphere of quiet introspection. Every face revealed complex emotions, shame, remorse, but also a renewed desire to grow. Laura, still in the hospital, received daily visits from parishioners, many of whom brought her flowers and homemade food. Although her physical condition was improving, she felt the need to speak with Father Giovanni. During a prayer evening organized for her, she finally found the courage to request a meeting. When the priest arrived at her room, Laura welcomed him with a tired but sincere smile. "Father, I have to thank you," she said, clasping his hands in hers. "If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be here today." Father Giovanni shook his head humbly. "Don't thank me, Laura. I only did what anyone would have done. It was God who gave you the strength to come back to us." But Laura wasn't convinced. "No, Father. You were the instrument. And I also need to apologize for all the pain this community has caused you." The priest looked at her with deep compassion. "Forgiveness is what makes us human, Laura. And I believe this event has taught us an important lesson: we must trust one another, even in the most difficult moments." Meanwhile, the story was beginning to attract attention far beyond the community's borders. The video of Laura's live stream, which had captured the events in the church, had been shared thousands of times on social media. What had initially been a local misunderstanding had now become a broader discussion on forgiveness, faith, and the power of human connection. News outlets picked up the story, praising Father Giovanni's composure and compassion during the crisis. Some even visited the small town to interview its inhabitants, curious to learn how the community was healing after such a dramatic event. The unexpected spotlight brought mixed emotions to the villagers. While some felt proud of the lessons their town had learned, others were uncomfortable with the attention. Still, Father Giovanni reminded everyone during one of their meetings, this story isn't about mistakes or blame. It's about redemption and the strength we find in coming together. Through it all, the priest's steady guidance became the anchor for a town learning to heal, forgive, and grow stronger in its faith. Images of the priest performing CPR while praying were accompanied by headlines ranging from sensationalism to reflection. A miracle in a small Italian church, the story of Father Giovanni, faith and dedication. This sudden notoriety was not welcomed with the same enthusiasm by everyone. Some parishioners felt uneasy, fearing that the media attention might detract from the true essence of the message. "We're not a circus," grumbled Pietro during a parish meeting. "We should focus on our work, not the journalists." But Father Giovanni, with his usual calm, replied, "Pietro, God works in mysterious ways. If this story can inspire others to reflect on faith and the importance of community, then let us accept it as part of his plan." And so it was. Journalists began visiting the small town, interviewing parishioners, and documenting the story of redemption and unity. Many villagers, initially reluctant, opened up, sharing how the incident had transformed not only their relationship with Father Giovanni but also with themselves. Yet, not everything was smooth. One evening, as Father Giovanni returned to the rectory after an evening meeting with the youth, he found an anonymous envelope slipped under the door. The contents were unsettling, a handwritten note that read simply, "You are not welcome here." The priest read those words multiple times, trying to grasp their meaning. Was it a threat? A provocation? He chose to say nothing about it but prayed longer than usual that night, asking God for the strength to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Despite the note, Father Giovanni continued his work with the same enthusiasm and dedication. However, he couldn't help but notice small signs of discontent among some townsfolk. Pietro, for example, seemed more distant than usual, and others avoided meeting his gaze during Mass. During a parish meeting, he decided to address the issue openly. "Brothers and sisters," he began, his voice steady but gentle, "I know some of you still have doubts about me. If there's something on your mind, I urge you to speak up. The church is a place of dialogue, not division." There was a long silence, finally broken by Pietro, who stood up slowly. "Father, I owe you an apology," he said, his tone a mix of wounded pride and sincere remorse. "I judged too quickly, and sometimes I let my stubbornness guide me. But I see that you're here for us, and I have no right to doubt your mission." Pietro's words were met with spontaneous applause, and the atmosphere in the room softened. Father Giovanni approached Pietro and shook his hand with gratitude. "Thank you for your honesty, Pietro. Trust is built day by day, and I'm here for that." The moment marked a turning point for the community, solidifying the sense of unity that Father Giovanni had worked so hard to nurture. The priest's unwavering patience and understanding became a beacon of hope for all, reminding them of the power of faith, dialogue, and reconciliation. As the months passed, the small village found a new sense of stability. The events involving Father Giovanni and Laura remained a vivid memory, but rather than dividing the community, they ultimately strengthened it. Misunderstandings and fears were overcome through sincere dialogue, guided by the priest's patience and humility. Laura, now fully recovered, became a living symbol of faith and unity. "I will never forget what happened," she said during a special Thanksgiving Mass held in her honor. "Not just because of the danger I faced, but for all that we learned as a community. We made mistakes, but we forgave each other, and that has made us stronger." The church, once a place of quiet division, transformed into a vibrant hub of activity. Each week, new volunteers joined parish initiatives, young people helped the elderly with their shopping, families took turns managing charitable activities, and even Pietro, the gruff blacksmith, became a central figure. He contributed his skills to maintaining the church and offered woodworking classes to the youth. Meanwhile, the media attention gradually faded, allowing the town to enjoy a renewed sense of peace. Yet, the story's impact lingered. Inspired by the events, a charitable foundation donated funds to build a community center next to the church. This new space, inaugurated with a grand celebration, became a meeting place for young and old alike, featuring classrooms for training courses, a library, and even a small theater. Father Giovanni, who had once feared he would not be accepted, became a beloved and respected figure. Every gesture, from his homilies to casual conversations in the village square, was imbued with sincerity and a deep love for the community. Despite his successes, the priest knew that his work was just beginning. Trust is built day by day, and each challenge was an opportunity to grow together. One particularly significant event occurred about a year after Laura's incident. During an evening mass, a young woman, a stranger to the village, entered the church. She sat quietly in the back, observing the service in silence. After the celebration, she approached Father Giovanni with a hesitant but determined expression. "Father, may I speak with you?" she asked, nervously clutching a bag in her hands. "Of course," he replied, leading her to a quiet corner of the sacristy. The woman, who introduced herself as Elisa, shared a story of pain and isolation. She had seen the video of Laura's rescue and felt inspired to seek help. "I didn't know where else to go," she admitted, "but something told me I'd find guidance here." Father Giovanni listened attentively, offering words of comfort and proposing a path of spiritual healing. Elisa's story soon became another testament to how the community, nurtured by that small village church, could extend its message beyond geographic boundaries. The village, once shaken by doubt and division, had become a beacon of hope and renewal, a testament to the transformative power of faith, unity, and compassion. Over the years, the village became a symbol of renewal, not only for its inhabitants but for anyone who arrived there seeking hope. The parish was cited as an example at conferences and religious gatherings, and the story of Father Giovanni was included in seminarian training courses as a model of resilience and pastoral leadership. In the end, what had begun as a challenge turned into an extraordinary opportunity to showcase the power of faith, compassion, and forgiveness. Father Giovanni, with his gentle smile and humble presence, continued to walk among the people, aware that each day was a new chapter to be written together with his beloved community. Thank you for following this story to the end. We hope it touched your heart and inspired reflection on the importance of trust, forgiveness, and unity. If you enjoyed this tale, leave a like, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next story. See you soon with another tale that will leave you on the edge of your seat. Until next time.